command, i.e. connect the Jewish people to the Or Ein Sof. And this led into the idea of explaining the second part of the verse. Vayikchu elecha HaShem and Zayizach. They're going to bring Moshe olive oil. When he is mashpia on them, they give back to him something, he gets increased from that. That was basically chapter 2. Chapter 3 started with the Rebbe's, Frierdiker Rebbe's Maimer prefaces that, so he kind of says it in the backwards order. Prefaces that with the conversation of the Raya Mehemna. So what comes first really is the Raya Mehemna, the idea of the faithful shepherd, that Moshe shepherds the people with faith. He feeds them their faith, bepanimius, which is also extended to the Moshe of the generation, like Mordechai in his generation, right? And then he explains the concept of kasis lamaor. Just trying to keep everything in place here, because kasis lamaor was the if you recall, kasis lamaor was the end of the verse which started off va'ata Tetzaveh b'nei Yisrael v'yikchu elecha HaShem and Zayizach, the one that we just spoke about in chapter base. It ends with the words kasis lamaor, crushed to illuminate. But nonetheless, that drasha in the Frierdiker Rebbe's Maimer is given after the drasha about Mordechai being the Raya Mehemna in his generation. So basically, if you look back, it goes like this. It's like arte Tetzaveh is explained, vayikchu elecha is explained. Then there's a period of discussing the idea of a Raya Mehemna and Mordechai in every generation. And then the end of the verse is explained, which is kasis lamaor. So basically, there's an interruption in just the explanation of that verse, va'ata Tetzaveh, that after it says vayikchu elecha, they brought Moshe olive oil. It's interrupted with the drasha about the Raya Mehemna, and then it goes into the end of the verse kasis lamaor. That's chapter 3. Chapter 4 is that all of that is prefaced. The whole business that we just said is prefaced with the drasha of Kibul HaYehudim, which is basically the Jewish people received at Purim what they only began to do at Matan Torah. And the whole idea was, how do they arrive at such a great feat, even in a time when they were so low? Because that's the whole idea. Because they were so low, because there was no revelations, they were able to fulfill the mitzvahs with Mesiras Nefesh, with self-sacrifice that didn't happen in the time of Matan Torah. They didn't need it. Okay, so that's basically, it's more or less organized.
Does it explain why, though we saw at Matan Torah, it didn't really translate into action?
It did translate to action. We kept the mitzvahs from then till Purim. Okay, but I'm just saying we didn't abandon the Torah.
We kind of did.
It didn't quite go into our hearts yet.
The Torah put to the test under fear of death.
I hate to tell you, but even after Purim, we did a few things wrong. The point is not that we suddenly became angels. The point is that there was something wrong with the acceptance of the Torah. Like, it wasn't. We said Nasa v'nishma, which means we'll do it no matter what, under any circumstances, but we didn't actually have to live Nasa v'nishma until Purim. That's the point. So the whole condition of our acceptance was that we will do this under any circumstances. Those circumstances did not present themselves until Purim, so we were never able to basically fulfill our word. So the total reception was therefore didn't happen yet.
There's no commandment against complaining.
Well, that's not so true.
That's
1,000 years?
What's that?
Between
How many years was it?
1,000?
It was about 1,000 years. Yeah.
wow.
If I'm not mistaken, I mean, like the Beis HaMikdash stood for 420 years, 10 years, the first one. And then from the time they came to Israel until they built the first Beis HaMikdash was, 7 generations. I'm not exactly sure how many years it was. It wasn't a few.
Right.
So I don't know, it's probably less than 1,000 years a little bit. So, okay, so let's move on. We're still now in chapter 4, just wrapping it up here at the bottom of page Kuf Lamed Aleph. Come join us.
Needs room to,
He needs heater.
learn.
Here, bring the heater, man. There's one here. You can sit right here. Sit on my lap.
Needs room to expand.
L'chora yesh lomar. Seemingly, there is to say, Shaperush b'kasis lamaor. That the explanation that we gave regarding kasis lamaor, crushed to reach the luminary, Shalide kasis, that through the idea of being broken, nishba v'nitke, which means broken, megim lahamaor, we reached not only to the light, but to the luminary, the source of light. Hu bir al zeh, it's an explanation on this, shebizman ha'gezera dafka ba'alu masiris nefesh, bofen naili yoser. It seemingly is an explanation on this idea that we just explained in this chapter, that at the time of a decree specifically, like not in the good times, but in the bad times, do you reach through Mesiris Nefesh to a higher height. So in other words, the whole idea of Kibul HaYehudim that we received in Purim, but we didn't achieve at Matan Torah, that sounds pretty much like the same vort that we said regarding Kasis Lamar. When you're broken, you reach to the luminary. Kasis Lamar, however, if you recall, is in the original verse that we're working with. Ata Tetzaveh b'nei Yisrael vayicho elech HaShem and zayizas Kasis Lamar. Lalos ner tamid. That's the pasuk that the whole thing is based on. Whereas in reality, this whole piece about Kibul HaYehudim, I know it's like Hebrew words here, but just try to work with it. Each of these phrases represents like a whole idea. Kibul HaYehudim is the Jewish people received upon themselves what they only started at Matan Torah. That is the beginning of the Frierdiker Rebbe's Maimer, and only later does he discuss the idea of Kasis Lamaor, but seemingly Kasis Lamaor is that. It's this notion that when you're broken, i.e. in the time of Purim, you achieve to the maor, higher than the light, which would have been Matan Torah. Ki masiris nefesh hi mitzad etzem haneshama shelamayla megilot. And why is that? Because the masiris nefesh of a yid, it comes from the very essence of yourself, which is above revelation. In other words, you have your revealed powers, and then you have your essential self. And he's saying that your revealed powers could be your intellect, your emotion, your thought, speech, and action. In other words, you follow me, like things that you like the panemius powers. When I say panemius, I mean like the 10 spheros powers, right? Which are sort of more revealed and come out, versus like the Kesser powers, which are makif powers. So the Mesiris Nefesh, the willingness to sort of just give your life, it doesn't come from your intellect, it doesn't come from your emotion, it comes from like your essential being that is unexplainable. So the Mesiris Nefesh is from the essence of the soul that's above revelation. That's called the maor, the luminary of the soul, as opposed to the light. Your light powers are sort of the revealed powers, your intellect, your emotion. So your Mesiris Nefesh, your willingness to like die for HaShem, for no reason, this comes from the essence of the soul, the maor, the luminary, shemimenu nimtza, or from which light is found. Ba'al yedei shayu az matzav dekasis, since they were in a situation of being broken at the time of Purim, nishbar v'nitke, therefore nizgale etzem neshama, the maor. That's why suddenly this hidden level of the soul came out, because they had to turn on their Mesiris Nefesh powers. So it's sort of like a natural consequence. When you're crushed, you have to serve Hashem in a higher level that makes sense. All of a sudden, you reach to the maor. Aval, I'm turning the page there. But from this is finally the thing I've been driving at the whole time. From the order of the topics in the Maimer, Shaperush b'kasis lamaor, that the explanation of being crushed to illuminate, Bala achreya inyan deraya mehemna, it comes only after the concept of raya mehemna, this notion of Moshe being the faithful shepherd, right? Mashma. So again, let's look at the order of the Maimer now for real. It starts off with Kibul HaYehudim, okay, which is this notion of the Jewish people received at Purim what they didn't receive at Matan Torah. Then it goes into the Raya Mehemna piece, right? The Raya Mehemna meaning the most of faithful shepherd, he feeds the people faith. he brings it into a panemius. And only then does it bring out the drush on kasis lamaor, being crushed to illuminate. Seemingly, since we just said,
All out of order.
we just said that crushed to reach the luminary is basically the same thing as Vakibel HaYehudim, because it means the Jewish people received the Purim, what they only started at Mount Torah. How did they do it? Because they were a time of crushed. Therefore, they got to a higher level. They got to the luminary of the Torah. That should come right after the drasha of Kibul HaYehudim. And instead, this business of Mordechai being the Raya Mehemna is lodged in the middle. Mashmitz, it implies the Indian Kasis Lamaor. It implies that the notion of being crushed to illuminate Shayach Gam Lezeh is also connected to the fact that Moshe Zan Mefarnes Es Amuna Shetiyah B'Panimius. It must be connected to the fact that Moshe jumps into the plot all of a sudden. We could have just gone from one drasha to the next, and instead we insert this notion that there's a need for Moshe to feed us our faith in a Panimius and basically allow us to access our faith so it doesn't remain at a level of makif. That drasha being nosed in there implies that being crushed to reach the luminary is relevant to Moshe feeding us our faith.
What is the drasha on?
So there's like three drushas, right? The one is Kibul HaYehudim, which is the notion that we received the Torah in full only at Purim, right? We received in Purim what we only began to do at Matan Torah. Then wedged in there is this notion about Moshe's the Raya Mehemna. He feeds us our faith, like a shepherd feeds his flock. Moshe is the shepherd of faith. He feeds us faith. And then is the idea of kasis lamaor, crushed to reach the luminary. That when you're crushed, you reach beyond light, you reach the source of light. And our point is that idea of being crushed to reach the source of light should have been right up next to the first drasha, because why did Purim arrive at this higher level than Matan Torah? Because we were crushed. So it's basically the whole idea of Kibul HaYehudim is the same as crushed to reach the luminary. And our question is, why is this business about Moshe being the Raya Mehemna stuck in the middle there? It implies that it needs Moshe in some way to feed us our faith in order to get the crushed to the luminary.
The catalyst.
But then shouldn't it come before?
Seemingly, like it's those two things should be next to each other. That's the point. Like, what's he doing in the middle there?
Sounds natural though in the middle.
Sounds natural.
Without him, we can't do it.
Why the gullus should do it on its own right.
It just crushes, and you have an illumination that doesn't stay with you. And that was really what happened with Matan Torah, in a way. And Purim, you needed both the deeper Emunah as well as the crushing in order to have free will to receive Torah and to act on it.
You're saying there was a crushing at Matan Torah?
Yeah, I also wanted to say that we were, under slavery we were crushed, but it's a different type of crush. There's one that we were crushed as slaves, and the other one is...
Well, we didn't receive the Torah in Mitzrayim. We did not receive the Torah in Mitzrayim. We were free already when we got the Torah. Whereas in Purim, we were in the midst of the slavery, so to speak. And that's what enabled us to get the Torah.
But weren't we crushed in Egypt, and then we reached the luminary at Sinai, so to speak?
I don't think that's the idea there. In other words, the idea is that at Sinai, we said it was like this fantastic revelation of God. Right? We weren't in a downtrodden state when we got the Torah there. We were like extremely uplifted state. We were like looking at the divine revelation, not in servitude. Whereas in Purim, in the worst of times, that's the idea. There we were in the best of times, here we were in the worst of times.
So
and specifically in the worst of times,
slavery.
What's that?
The
I'm saying the slavery was a preparation to get us out of slavery and to make us like ready to receive the Torah. But it wasn't that we received the Torah in a state of slavery. We received the Torah in a state of freedom.
Right, but when we received the Matan Torah, it wasn't, did we have incredible faith? Did we have deep faith at that point? No, it was really more...
We had deep faith.
From above.
But yeah.
Okay, but we had deep faith. We said Nasa V'Nishma, right? We
We said it, but
I was just...
okay.
That's what I'm just trying to understand.
That's a good point.
I know, I get all that. I
Right.
agree. I'm just
What are
saying
we
that
saying
when we
happened
say
at Mount
crushed here,
Torah?
we really mean like
It was the Moshe,
in this moment
the
we get
faithful,
like beyond this, how we would feel under slavery.
shepherd
I
was
think, like,
happened
when
at
we're
Mount
hearing
Torah,
from
but
God.
we weren't crushed, and at Purim we had both.
The idea was there was no crushing at Matan Torah. Like you said, it was like from above to below. There was all revelation. It was the good times. We received the Torah under like good conditions.
Complete open
And it wasn't. We weren't crushed.
It wasn't complete willingness to, like he's holding the mountain over our head.
But it-
What got crushed?
Right here.
No, but even then,
Whatever we got.
no. I want to just say a word about that. In Hasidus, because you could say that it was holding the mountain over our heads, and that's sort of
What got
like.
crushed?
But in Hasidus, the way that it's explained is that in what the idea behind their holding the mountains over our heads still in no way is a parallel to the Purim situation, and I'll tell you why. The idea that the mountain was held over our head is the very reason why the Torah receptance was put under scrutiny, because we didn't receive it willingly. Whereas what we're saying in Purim is that we had every reason to not receive it anymore. We could have, we'd have just said, I don't want to be Jewish anymore, we could have gotten out of it. Instead, we put ourselves into it. So even though you could say that there was like a situation where we were going to get crushed, it's just like a borrowed phrase from English. The meaning is the exact opposite. In that situation, he was forcing us to receive it. In this situation, we were forcing ourselves to receive it. And to sort of sweeten that, in the Hasidic terminology, when it says he was holding the mountain over our heads, it says that there's three avos, and they all called the Holy of Holies a different name. Avram called it a mountain, Yitzchak called it a field, and Yaakov called it a house. So whenever you see the mountain idea, it's like a symbol of love, Abraham. And the idea is that when he held the mountain over our heads, it means he showed us such love that basically how could we say no? It was like such an unbelievable like revelation of God. We're like, okay, we'll take that. So that's the idea, is that it was not a crushed situation. It was something that was like pushed onto us as opposed to something that we were having mysterious nefesh to uphold.
But like you said, it came from HaShem and Sinai. And Purim, it came from us, from within.
Right. Anyway, the question on the table is, why is the Moshe and the Raya Mehemna stuck into this, the middle of these two seemingly parallel drushas that don't need to be interrupted with Moshe Rabbeinu? So we're going on to Hey.
Where are they exactly?
What's that? Where what?
Where are these? Where?
In the previous Rebbe's Maimer called Kibul HaYehudi.
He set it up to the in Yanim, those points by point back to that.
Yeah, all the things we've discussed so far, they're exactly borrowed from the Friedrich Rebbe's Maimer called Kibul HaYehudim, and the Rebbe is just now discussing the order of the Maimer to try and learn things out from the order of it.
Maybe it's really not out of order so much. Maybe it's like...
Of course it's not out of order, but he's trying to say that it seems out of order
It seems like...
because what you don't need seemingly Moshe Rabbeinu to be in there to finish the concept. Like basically, Kibul Yehudim is the same thing as when the Jewish people were crushed. They were in the bad times, Dafka. That's when they reached the luminary. It's like that is. It's just, you could just use that phrase Kasis Lamar as like two words which explain the whole concept. Just do it already. Why you have to like throw in this whole other fantastic, wonderful Hasidic concept about there being such a thing as a Raya Mehemna who feeds us faith? It seems like it's just like you could have put that after or before because these two things are one. That's his idea. And again, inside the Maimer of the Friedrich Rebbe, there's no explanation as to why it's there. So when the Rebbe is going to come and describe it to us, going to tell us why it's there, so it's, oh, it had to be there. But when you're reading the Friedrich Rebbe's Maimer, it looks like he's just like sidetracking for a second before he finishes his point. That's what's the idea. Hey, how you doing? V'yesh levar ze al pi hayidua.
It's sort of a common analysis by the Rebbe.
Yeah,
He does the Rambam, he does the Rashi, he does it.
he's an analyzer.
He analyzes.
Yesh levar al ze al pi hayidua. We want to explain this whole thing, okay, according to the known concept. It's known, if you look at the bottom, it's known from some heavy-duty sources like Sefer Ayin Beis from the Rebbe Rashab, the deepest book ever written. He says, "Dezesh Yisrael ma'aminim belukus." This the Jewish people believe in God, be'emuna peshuta, with simple faith. Ve'ein tzrichim rayus al zeh. We don't even need proofs for this. We just believe. Hu mitzad shnei ta'amim. I was just giving like this. I saw this in action. I was giving like a lecture to a bunch of secular Jews, and we were telling them about Yiddishkeit and about Torah and mitzvahs and how important it is. And someone asked, like in the days of the temple, are the women of the wall going to be like stopped from going? So I said, don't worry. In those days, everyone's going to be believers. And this girl raised her head like she was like not a practicing Jew. She's furious. I'm a believer right now, sir. Thank you very much. Like you try and tell a Jew they don't believe in God, like they'll that's it, because they believe, they're believers. It has nothing to do with anything. That's what he's saying here. Where do we get this simple faith from?
How'd you answer?
It was a 3-hour for bringing. Now she's in Machon Alta.
No way.
They don't need proofs for this. It's because of 2 reasons. 2 reasons. Okay? One is because their mazel sees.
Mazel sees?
Their mazel sees. It's a quote from...
Stops, like, sees?
Can see.
Oh, sees.
It's a quote from like the book of Daniel.
Mazel sees? Yeah, that's interesting.
There's a story basically that Daniel, the prophet, was walking in the desert, and God appeared to him, and basically he was with a group of people, and all the people around him got afraid, even though they didn't see the revelation of God. But so it says over there, their mazel saw. In other words, they were not in a position to actually, it was makif to them, in their physical fleshy body, in their eyes, they were not having any experience, nothing happened. But since the experience was happening in a dimension beyond them, and they also happen to exist in that dimension because their souls are found there. So the soul in those higher dimensions had an influence on their body, even though they were not aware of what was going on. They got afraid suddenly because their mazel saw. That's where this concept comes from. The neshama shelamayla, the soul above, roa elokus, it sees God.
Wow.
Simply because it's hanging out with God. Riya shelamayla ma'aseichel, and it sees God not with the mind's eye, it's like Pashat looking at God at every second. V'zeh poel ba neshama, and this affects on the neshama shebaguf that's in your body, ha'emunah belukus. So you're not necessarily always in a state of panic and fear. It's not like such an intense communication, but it does give you one thing. It makes you always believe in God. There's because part of you above is like sitting there looking at God, so it has enough of effect on the part of you that's in your body that you just simply believe in God without needing proofs. Okay, it doesn't mean that you can't confound the matter and start like convincing yourself that there's no God and like start confusing yourself. But that's all basically like a charade. Deep down, you just simply believe in God because part of you is looking at Him. Seeing is believing, as they say. So even though the part of you that's in your body is not seeing it, you have this piece of you that is just absolutely 100% certain that there's a God, and it has its influence on you.
And most of the time, people are just rejecting interpretations.
Yes, that's very true.
Yep. Not God Himself.
Exactly. Very true.
Believed in himself.
V'od bior, but Yisrael, nice to see you. V'od bior, another explanation of why a Jew has simple faith without needing any proof, is the shoresh ha'emunah hu me'etzem ha'neshama, is because the root of emunah comes from the essence of the soul. Shelamayla mazlai chazeh, which is a higher status than your mazel sees. Because your mazel sees is not your essence of your soul. It's the part of your soul basically between your essence and your body. The light, like sort of, I don't know, a friend of mine once called it like the umbilical cord, basically, connecting you all the way to the top. All that part of your soul, which is sort of hanging out on Atzilas Bri Yetzira, it is your mazel. And
We should understand what the Muslim means, because it's not what we understand it in sort of contemporary language.
okay, so the word mazel actually means drip. The word mazel means to drip. Like when in the Hebrew, modern Hebrew, they say nozelet, your nose is running, right? It means to drip. So what does it have to do? What is it like? How does it correspond to like the sort of colloquial mazel tov? It's very deep actually when you say mazel tov. It's not a small thing. What you're saying is that you should have a good drip, and it means that your soul above. This is a simple pshat. There's no other way around. This is what it means when you say mazel tov. Your soul above should basically have more of an influence and drip into your body than it does normally. That's why, like, you have a mazel tov on your birthday when you have a simcha. There's a you get. People say, like, oh, you get a mazel tov, right? You ever heard that? Because, like, something happened to you when you're like, there's an increase in elokus, and you can, like, experience more divinity, basically.
Yeah.
So it comes from the word your mazel. Even
We mistranslate it as luck, and it's nothing to do with that.
well, nothing to do with it, because when your mazel is strong, you're sort of like a little bit more lucky. It's not lucky, but like you're connected to like the source a little bit more.
It's not random, is it?
No, it's not definitely not random. But then again, we don't ever believe in random. But the idea is that there is a certain, you do have a certain like power. Put it like that. You're right. Luck. The word luck is definitely off the charts. Just in general in Judaism, like we believe in hashgacha pratis. There's not everything is being constantly arranged by the Creator perfectly. There's no luck. There's no chance. But why do we call it like luck? A lucky time. Mazel. Person has a mazel. He's lucky because when a person's lucky, he's winning, right? He's getting the girl. He's getting the house. He's like basically scoring on whatever he's trying to do because his soul is more powerful and like he's able to channel the divine. We say like on a person's birthday, for example, when their mazel is gover. Remember, you heard that? The Rebbe always speaks about this, that on your person's birthday, mazalo gover, your mazel is strong. And therefore, you can give people brachas, where you'll become like a tzaddik all of a sudden, when you can say something is going to happen, because you have this mazel. Okay, so that's the idea of mazel. Anyway, what we're talking about now is above the mazel of the neshama. The mazel is the sort of light connection from the essence, after the essence, up until and not including the body is called your mazel. But another reason why a Jew has simple faith in God is because the source of his soul, which is above his mazel, is God, basically, right?
The mazel comes from that.
The mazel, everything comes from that. The goof comes from that. The mazel comes from that. Basically, the soul and the body, they all come from that. This, that the essence of the soul is connected with godliness, his kashrus atzmis. It is an essential connection, i.e., she'ena toloi basiba. It's not connected, it's not based or dependent on any reason. Gam lo be'inyan hariya shelamayla meseichel. It's not even dependent on the reason called vision, which is above intellect. Let me explain. So we said a second ago that the mazel is like seeing God, not with the mind's eye, not intellectual, but pashut, looking at God. So that's why you believe in God, because your soul sees it. As great as that is, as much as seeing is believing, and it's like a perfect thing, it's still a reason to believe. Because you see, therefore you believe. If you didn't see, you wouldn't believe, but you do see, so you have a reason to believe. That's the lower level of having faith. But the fact is that above that your soul is one with God, then there's no cause or reason that you believe in God. It's because you are basically one with God. And that you don't have to have a reason and a cause of why your belief, where your belief comes from. Belief is intrinsic to you because you are that thing.
Standard equipment.
Standard equipment. It comes with the manufacturer. Which is deep. In other words, so therefore, there is no reason for a Jew that has to believe at this level. You believe as a very part of your character and nature. It's built into you. If you're able to access the essence of your soul, that is. But in other words, just like the mazel can have this effect on you, sort of like in a makif dika way, again, it won't necessarily make you do everything in accordance with, that aligns with your belief system. But so too the essential part of you has an effect on you that will, again, not necessarily make you do everything in line with your belief system, but the fact that you should believe is now no longer a cause, but it's actually part of you. Does everyone understand this?
Yeah, but so the mazel is, you don't need to do anything. That's sort of automatic. You can't really interfere with that connection, right?
Well, no, you can. In other words, that just because your mazel sees does not mean that you're going to always listen to it. It just means that you do believe for that reason. It has enough of a effect on your body inside this little world.
It's almost like a subconscious.
Yes. It's a constant subconscious belief in God, whether or not you bring it to the conscious level or not.
And then your direct connection with your neshama, with HaShem, that's something that you have to reveal your essence to manifest that? I'm sure use the right term.
Well, you have to do something to manifest your belief anyway. Even to manifest the belief that your soul above sees, to bring that to a panemius and to live with it, you have to do something. You have to listen to that subconscious and make it happen. The same is true with the other one. It's just that it's the belief is deeper because it's an essential belief as opposed to a causal belief based on something. So both of them have their effect upon you subconsciously. But what we're going to say is when you actually live, I don't want to give away too much, but when you're going to live by your belief, you can draw on different stages of how much you believe. And that's going to have an effect on a lot of things.
And that mazel can change.
No, your mazel cannot change in terms of its belief in God.
No, I'm saying the source that makes mazel, people can bypass that mazel and be above it. If you're completely with one with God,
Right.
the mazel shouldn't affect you anymore because you're beyond it. I mean,
Okay, it's true what you're saying, but I feel like you're sort of switched trains a little bit because one mazel can also mean your destiny.
right.
And I think that's what you're getting into all of a sudden.
Right.
That you can sidestep your destiny if you go higher than destiny. But we're not really talking about that definition of mazel right now.
Okay.
We're talking just like a parv definition that you have a part of your soul above that, and here in this capacity, it's not limiting you. It's just seeing God and giving you that subconscious belief in God at every moment. And yet there's a higher belief in God. There's it's not belief for a reason. It's just an essential belief because you're it. Tag, you're it. V'yesh lomar. Let's go on. I mean, more or less, you getting it? You with me? Okay. V'yesh lomar. Dema'achiluk. We're not done explaining it. Dema'achilukim shebein shnei habiurim. The differences between these two explanations, quote unquote, ha'inyanim, these two ideas, is that the amuna ba'neshama hameluveshes baguf, that the faith that you have, that your soul has while it's in your body, while it's dressed up in your body, the faith haba meriyas haneshama, the faith that comes from the first cause that we said, that your soul above sees God, shalamayla, he bechinas makif. That faith is basically a makif, which means that your soul above is seeing God. But it has nothing to do with you seeing God. It's like the people in the story of Daniel. They're all afraid for something that's not actually happening to them. Right? It has an effect on them that they don't even know why they're afraid. Right? It's a makif means it's beyond their conscious experience. That's what it means, makif. Their belief is beyond their conscious experience. They don't really know why they believe. The kevach neshama shelamayla he lamayla mislavshus. Oh, so this is deep. Since the soul above your body is by definition, it has a limitation. It is above the ability to invest itself into your body. If it could invest yourself into your body, it would. It's too high, that level of mazel, to come into a goof. So it's like trapped outside of your body because there's too much light. And so since your whole relationship with that part of your soul is makif dik, you don't really know what it is, and you're never able to have real true access to it except for some sort of faint expression from it. Therefore, whatever it gives you remains a faint expression and a makif experience. Because whatever it is cannot be fully grasped by you, it's too much to fit into your body, then the experience that you have from it is one that's not going to internalize very well. It's going to stay makif, and therefore you have this faith, but the faith will never really truly be a bepanemius. You will not be fed bepanemius, like we're saying this Raya Mehemna piece. He's going to feed you your faith. You'll never have that experience so easily from the part of your soul above that sees, because it can't communicate it to you in your own language.
That's why you need Moshe. Connected.
It's exactly the way it should be, because if it could, then your free will would be out the window.
Okay, also true. Also true.
How does that relate to intuition?
Let me just finish this paragraph. Okay, so the kevan, since shaneshama shelamayla, since the soul above, he lamayla mislafshus, It's by definition above investiture into this body. L'chein pu'ulasa b'neshama. Therefore, its effect on the body, on the soul, hamuluveshes b'guf, which is inside of your body, hi b'chinas makif. That's pretty much what we just said. It's a makif effect. Ubichdei she'amuna. And in order that the faith, b'neshama luveshes b'guf, the faith that you have with your soul inside your body, tiyeh b'panimius, in order for that faith to be b'panimius, which means that you're living by your faith, you're not just sort of having it in some makif way. It can only happen if you reveal your essential connection to your soul, which comes from higher than the mazel. Why? This is a little bit complicated, but it's a beautiful vort. It's because the essence of the soul, even though it's higher than the mazel, it doesn't have the limitation of the mazel, in that it's too high to come into the body, because the essence has no limitations. And the same, if you exist in your body, where's that coming from? Right? It's coming from the essence, because the essence can reveal itself infinitely. It can also express itself finitely. So therefore, in order to live by and internalize, is really the word, your makif dika faith, you actually have to go up into the essential connection with HaShem, that you are one with God. It's not a cause that you're believing in God, which is basically some kind of a reason why you have to believe, but you intrinsically believe because of your essential nature. If you'll attach yourself to that essential nature, guess what? That essential nature is also found in your body, because the essence is equally found both in the body and the soul above. So if you access the essential nature of your belief, which is that you are a believer, not for any reason, so then you can internalize that faith, and you can be understood also by your, so to speak, inner powers. And you can live out your faith, your body and your mind and your heart and your powers that you're aware of. They can comply with this, what normally would be a makif dika faith, because only your soul above experiences it, and you have no real experience of that soul above. When you access the essence, you can now internalize that faith, because the essence is also found inside of your body.
Say it again, but different.
Let's just finish this paragraph. Therefore, the faith that of the soul inside of your body, that comes from the essence, is b'panimius. That does come, and you can live by it. Okay, so saying it again basically is like this. It has a little bit of an understanding of thinking about the essence of HaShem for a second, right? Let's think about the essence of HaShem. It's a little bit hard to think about that, but just as much as we can. The idea is that from the essence of HaShem, two different types of powers come out. We call it gvul and bli gvul. Limitation and unlimited. Okay? These are the basic. Okay, Hashem is like a lot of things, but if you could break it down, like, what is He? He's a fusion of opposites. He can be infinite and He can be finite at the same time. And that's basically as close to a definition of the powers of what the essence bears as you can get. Because you can't really describe it. First of all, that itself is not, we don't know what it means. But let's just say those are His two ways of interacting. So when He reveals the infinite out of Himself, that's called the Or Ein Sof. Okay? And when He reveals the finite, this is called the Seder Ishtalshus, the limitation. Right? And they're really opposites. One is basically, finite building blocks, letters, concepts, everything has a sort of edge to it and like a world. And one is, there's no boundaries, it's completely unlimited, period, right? Now, these two ideas is basically what we're saying of your soul above versus your soul inside your body. Your soul above is like connecting to HaShem in an unlimited way. It's unlimited. It's not limited by the structure of the vessel of your body. And therefore it has like a view to HaShem that it's the Or Ein Sof. It's seeing that HaShem is everything and there's nothing other than Him. Right? But the problem is, infinity cannot fit inside of a finite box. It can't fit inside your body. So even though you come from there and your soul is still presently hanging out in the Or Ein Sof, and you're seeing that God is infinite, and it's sort of sending like a little communication to the part of you that's in your body, so you have this intrinsic knowledge that there's a God who's infinite, because it's communicating. You're communicating to yourself from that level. But since it's infinite and it doesn't really fit into a finite body, you can never actually grasp and sort of live by that faith because it doesn't fit inside your body. That's the whole point. Now, when it comes to your body is concerned, which is a finite expression of God, you have to remember that both the infinite and the finite, they're equal expressions of godliness. It's not like the infinite captures God more than the finite does. The essence is both limited and unlimited simultaneously. Which means that the same God who is basically found in an infinite fashion, his very self is what is the life force and existence behind the finite fashion. It's just that in the finite realm, HaShem allows himself to be contained in something, in the infinite realm not. So inside the essence, if you go up to the essence, you'll find there both of these things. Basically, you'll find God as he exists infinitely, you'll find God as he exists finitely at the same time. If you can reach up that high, basically, if your faith can be drawn from a place where also inside of Hashem's essence he is finite, that means that the faith no longer has to remain makif. It's no longer merely in a state of infinity, it's also in a state where it can be finite and it can be translated inside of your vessel, because inside of Hashem, that's not a limitation that he has to be only infinite. He can be finite as well. And when you access the essence of Hashem, where you reached also the source of finitude, which is also the essence of Hashem, then you can actually draw down this faith and live by it, because you can internalize it into finite vessels like your mind, your heart, your thought, speech, and your action. And only by accessing your essential connection to Hashem, recognizing that your goof also is an essential godly entity, not just your neshama, only then can you basically live by your faith, that your finite self can be a perfect mirror with your infinite self. That's saying that in other words. You follow that?
And what is the path to revealing that essence?
Oh, so that's you have to learn the maor arte Tetzaveh. Okay, so that's good. All right. I mean, listen. As much as we can understand, Bechlal, what this means, but I don't know the words. I'm doing my best.
The words are a bit finite.
Al pizeh, accordingly, yesh levaer kesher inyanim ba'maimer. Okay, he's going to help us answer this question that was behind us. Now we can understand the connection of the Frierdiker Rebbe's Maimer, which was what? What was the question? The Indian, the kassis, lamar, the whole idea of crush to illuminate, came only after the idea of Raya Mehemna. So this is also the answer to your question. Why can we only reach our luminary in a state of being crushed with a preface of the Raya Mehemna, of the Moshe Rabbeinu of the generation going to feed us our faith? Because this that Moshe feeds us our faith, that it can be internalized and not just makif. It's because he reveals in us the essence of our soul. You can't necessarily reveal your own essence of your soul, like we learned in the previous mimer. Kisikna eved ivri. When Moshe will acquire a Jewish slave, and what do we say is that you can do whatever you can do as a slave, as an animalistic level of soul, but to reach the level of a boss, as a throwback to the last mimer, which is the essential inwardness of your soul, that your soul is Pashad Orein Sof and it's godly, that requires hiskashrus to Moshe Rabbeinu. He has the power. That's what Moshe does. He's like this. He's called the great shepherd because he's able to basically show the flock what they're doing, who they are, what their life is all about. So when he triggers it, he can allow you to access the essence of your soul. Again, this is the unique concept of the Jewish version of an intermediary, right? Which is distinctly different from the Christian version, which is why people sometimes accuse us of all kinds of things, but it's a slight difference. What Moshe is doing, he's not standing in between us and Hashem, that we can't get to Hashem without him, like sort of existentially. It's just that we can't get to Hashem without him. But it's not because we don't have Hashem inside of us. It's because he helps us to reconnect to the true self that we already are. Once he does it, he's not giving us something that we don't already have. So he's sort of eternally standing there that we need to connect with him in order to connect with God. It's not the case. But we actually can't connect with the truest part of ourselves without his help. So he connects us to the source of our own soul. And there is a sort of gadget there that the Jewish people need in order to trigger their essential being, just like we find in the story of Mordechai. 22,000 Jews came out, little children, and their claim was, we are willing to die, Mordechai, in life or in death, we're with you. And they had this unbelievable serious nefesh. Their parents came out to feed them. They say, no, we're going to fast with Mordechai, we're going to sit here and die with Mordechai. So you see that it came from them, but it came from them because their devotion basically was through Mordechai. He brought them to this level that really they were ready to die for God. But their claim was, we're really ready to die for you, Mordechai, because he brought out of them their essential being. So Moshe Rabbeinu is not like just a character in the Torah. He's a sort of unique spiritual dimension which Jews require, in order to be with God. On the other hand, as we're going to learn, Moshe himself benefits from us, right? We're going to give him something also. There's like a dual relationship. But there is, and basically what does Moshe kind of represent is Torah. Moshe is Torah, right? So don't we always talk about this idea that Torah and the Jewish people sort of switch roles? Sometimes we require the Torah to connect with God. But then when we sort of reach our ultimate place that we're connected with God, we can even give the Torah something. Remember we talked about this in the last few Maimarim. Sometimes the Torah is called the Chassan and we're called the Kala. Sometimes we're called the Chassan and the Torah is called the Kala. It's the exact same little, move that we're making right here. You have a question?
Well, I had a good analogy over this, is that the intermediary we're talking about, the Jewish people, think of a river, something you need a bridge to go over, to get to the other side. For Jews, it's like two ropes and you tie a knot. It's the same one, it becomes stronger on both sides.
Okay.
I was just curious of what Moshe Rabbeinu does exactly to ignite the essence of the Jewish people's soul.
Well, look at what he did for you, for example. In other words, his main tool that he's been using for the last, let's say, 9 generations is Chassidus. That basically, when you learn Chassidus, suddenly you're willing to basically give up everything for your old life, change your name, change your place, sit and learn Torah 24 hours a day. And even if you say, well, I started doing that without Chassidus. So then you'll learn a couple first chapters of the Tanya where it says that even those who are not openly receiving their connection from Moshe through, like saying, Moshe, can I have what you... He gives it to them anyway from the backside. He brings it around the corner. So basically the whole generation, the whole Jewish population since the times of the Baal Shem Tov have been receiving their excitement for God and their willingness to sort of go out of this from Chassidus being revealed in the world. Sometimes you can just receive it directly. Sometimes you go to a Misnagdish yeshiva where someone's secretly learning Tanya on the side and it's breathing it through all of his lectures without telling you. But either way, it's Chassidus, which is basically igniting us to serve Hashem. That's the tool he's used. Despite the fact that he basically is like a godly entity walking through the world. So he like vivifies, like Rabbi Kaplan was saying. Eli asked a question in the Fabringen in Yud Shvat. Why can't we just connect straight to Hashem? Why do we need a Rebbe? And his line was basically that it's like having the Kriyas Yamsuf before you at every second. When it's to believe in something that happened thousands of years ago and to still be living like alive with that faith is difficult. We need to see the money. Hashem has to like show us himself. A Rebbe, Moshe Rabbeinu, is that. He's a godly entity. When you come across him, you're like, whoa, I didn't realize there was like a God still going around the world in these days. It's impossible for a man to do that. This is the work of God. So you have like a living, it's not just a Talmud Chacham. He's a tzaddik, he's a prophet. He's something that you can like see that there is mysticism and godliness and miracles in the world today. And that brings, in other words, he's a walking example of Elokus. So it brings you get excited from that. You're like, that's what I was looking for. Whereas God, he's creating the world every second. The whole thing is a big giant miracle, but you can miss that because it's enclosed in nature and you don't see that it's godly. And you can get lost when it's like basically like he jumps in and sticks out and shows you Elokus. That's why he's also called Torah. Torah in general does this. If a Yid will bring himself to the Torah and he'll see the Torah and Moshe is basically one thing. It's just that it happens to be that the Torah never stopped being taught by Moshe. So it's very helpful to catch on to like the most freshest words of Torah from Moshe in order to like really see what it's all about. That's what he does for you. Okay, we're out of time. But just wait. I just want to finish like literally the last sentence, which is that. All right, no, we'll cover this tomorrow. We'll give a little recap. Okay, shkoyach. Thank you.
Very practical. Essence of the soul.
Essence of the soul is very practical.
The essence of essence.